Hey everyone, this is David Vigar, and I'm excited to be a part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Globe Teleservices. We are now on the 10th episode of this podcast series, and I must say, I never expected it to be such a fascinating ride. From women leaders in Africa to telecom professionals turned army men in Ukraine, we witnessed so much. The feedback and the love from the industry for this initiative so far has been so much better than I could have ever imagined it to be. So, it was only fair that for this 10th milestone episode of mine, I invite one of my most favorite humans of telecom. This man is definitely one of the most influential individuals within our industry, and one of the first few people I interacted with nearly a decade ago when I entered the world of telecoms. He has worked with some of the most fascinating brands that any of us can dream of working with, and the world has been his oyster. I'll let him do the rest of the talking himself, so please join me in welcoming David Vigar, VP and GM at TruSense, a Root mobile company. David, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you and from which part of the world are you joining this podcast today?
Hey Anurag, and thank you very much for having me on today. So I'm joining you from Berkhamsted, which is a small town on the outskirts of London. We're in the county of Hertfordshire, about a 30-minute train ride from central London. Sadly, the weather is typically British. It is raining cats and dogs outside today.
Well, I think most of our meetings have been in a similar British weather, so it feels at home.
Absolutely.
So, David, I guess the first question which many of us would like to know, tell us a bit more about David, about your journey. You've been in the telecom space for a long time. You've conquered so many fronts in telecom. So, how did the journey begin for David, and how's the going been?
Mhm. The journey began a little bit by accident. When I went to university, I studied economics. And like most of my peers studying economics, my career plan was either to go into financial services or into the graduate scheme of one of the big accountancy firms. Now, in the UK, the grading system starts, if you get great grades, you get a first class degree, then it's an upper second class degree, then a lower second class degree, and then a third class degree. To get into the City of London, to get into any of the big accountancy firms, you need to get an upper second class degree. Sadly, my grades weren't good enough. I got a lower second class, and that cut off all those routes for me. So after university, I went onto all the jobs websites. I started applying left, right, and centre for financial analyst positions, and I found one. I got an interview at a company called Tele2, a company I'd not come across before, based in Twickenham in southwest London. So I pitch up, have an interview. I wouldn't say I understood everything they were telling me, but luckily they offered me the job, and I gladly accepted it. It turns out, found out 2 years later, that the job wasn't a financial analyst job. It was a pricing analyst job, and indeed, the initial job I had was to do pricing. So, providers sent pricing in. I had to play around with them, upload them into the system, and make recommendations to the team on whether we should switch suppliers based on new pricing. And I found out a couple of years down the road from Ken and Anthony, the two guys I was working for, that actually they'd asked to post a pricing analyst role, but the recruitment agent had got it wrong and posted financial analyst, and that's the reason I'd applied for it. So I did wind up in telecoms a little bit by accident. I have to say it's one of the happiest accidents of my career because I've loved every minute of working in this industry. From Tele2, I spent a couple of years there learning the ropes in the voice industry. So figuring out how we route international voice calls, looking at the pricing, looking at the operations side, looking at a little bit on the technical side. I then moved into procurement, and that's really where I've stayed for most of my career. From Tele2, I moved into iBasis. At the time, they were merging with KPN, Royal Dutch Telecom. That was a very interesting place to be because iBasis at the time was one of the largest players in the voice market, in the voice wholesale market. So a really great place to learn how to do things at scale. Whilst at iBasis, I like to shop around for new things to do and new things to learn. And one of the things that I found was SMS. iBasis has decided to get into the SMS market. They needed someone to build a supply base, and they asked me to do that. It was very interesting for me. I got to have a bit more control. I got to go find a whole bunch of new providers out there. And that's where I bumped into Tony Jamous and Eric Nadelin, who'd founded a company called Nexmo. Mm-hmm. At the time, I thought Nexmo was just a very interesting small wholesaler, a couple of cool guys. They seemed like they knew what they were talking about. And I remember on the way home, Tony sent me a text message. I was at Waterloo Station on platform 19, just about to get onto the train back to Richmond, where we lived. And Tony had texted me to say, "Hey, we're looking for someone to manage carrier relations, manage procurement. Do you know anyone?" And of course, at that time, I'd started to think about what was next for me. So, of course, I replied, "Oh, yes, me." Had a few chats with Tony and Eric and joined the team there. First day, walked into the office. I was the only person there, and I was the only person there for about 3 weeks until they hired another person in London, a guy called Marco. I think when I joined, there were 6 or 7 people in the company, so very, very small, but very exciting. And we worked really hard as a team, and I think we achieved great success. 4 years later, the business selling to Vonage, a big US telco. Through there, I was able to experience building a team, building products, leading a portion of a business. I got experience in the corporate development side of things, and it was really exciting. And that's really where I got my teeth into SMS properly. Vonage acquired Nexmo. I did a couple more years there, working on some special projects. And one of the projects I worked on was sourcing for a certain social media company, a certain search engine that I'm sure many people have heard of. And through my work there, just as I was looking again at what was next, their recruitment team called me and said, "Would you like to come for an interview?" And that's a call you don't say no to. So I went there. I had an interview. I got very, very excited. And thankfully, 6 interviews later, they offered me a job. And I spent two wonderful years working with fantastic people at Google, solving some really interesting problems. And there's certainly a project that I'm very proud to have worked on. My journey at Google wasn't actually that long. A couple of years in, I got a call from Twilio. They were launching a new messaging exchange, which sounded very interesting. They asked me to come on back into a kind of leadership role, and I felt for the future of my career, that was probably a good place to build some more leadership experience. Twilio, for those of you who don't know, is widely regarded as one of, if not the leader in the communications platforms as a service space. They are a big company, 7,000 people or so. And that was a great place for me to learn how to scale, how to lead in a large company. And I learned a huge amount there. More recently then, I had a call from Rajdip, the founder of Route Mobile. He's someone I've known for a long, long time and someone I have a huge amount of respect for. I've watched Route Mobile grow from the early days, and I feel it's a company that one thing they really get right is they keep their people are happy, and the people there feel engaged, and they feel like they're doing something worthwhile. And you see that in the retention there. So they asked me to come on board, and I'm now in a general manager position at TruSense, which is the new mobile identity business. And that's really where my career is focused now, is identity. So it's been a journey. I've had great experience in voice messaging and now into identity. I've been fortunate to work at each part of the value chain, on the originating side at Google, to the guys in the middle at iBasis and Nexmo, and then also at mobile operators at Tele2 and KPN.
So, David, first and foremost, in that flurry of experiences which you shared, we must profoundly thank that executive who fuddled up on the job description. Had that error not happened, we wouldn't have had the dynamic David Vigar as part of our industry. So first and foremost, wherever you are, I'm sure you're listening to this podcast. So thank you so much on behalf of the entire CPaaS ecosystem. And David, so I was counting while you were mentioning so many experiences. So I saw that's like the fifth company for you now, right? So, what's been the span of this journey? When did this journey begin?
Oh, that's a question. Think I think I would have started in 2005. So autumn of 2005 was when I joined Tele2. So that's 18 years ago now.
Yeah, and I must say that your experiences seem enough for a lifetime, actually. So.
I've been very fortunate.
Awesome. That's great. So David, in the midst of so many wonderful experiences, share with us one experience which you feel has been the most memorable or impactful one. It could be a project, it could be a moment, something that has been a very significant part of your career so far.
Oh, I think the most impactful project I've worked on was during my time at Google. I was very fortunate to work on the Google Station project. Google
Mm-hmm.
Station, for those who don't know, was a project that Google had to provide free, fast public Wi Fi in public places in emerging markets. In
Mm-hmm.
India, in places like railway stations and in public libraries. And in South Africa, it included putting Wi Fi into the townships. And being able to work on that project and understanding the value that that could bring to those communities by allowing them to get online. And certainly in some of those places, being able to get online opens up the ability to have a bank account. It opens up the ability to become an entrepreneur. Um, and I think the impact that is able to have on people's lives is really significant. And through my career, there are a number of these projects that I've worked on that I feel I can really feel that it's made a human impact. But that certainly was the I think the most memorable for the level of impact I think that had.
And given the fact that I come from India, we've actually experienced this service in India, and I think it's a shame at the moment. I think that service has been paused, but while we were at it, it was actually very interesting. And those were still in those days when your 4G bandwidth was not really out there, and it was wonderful to get access to free Wi-Fi at our New Delhi railway station. So thank you to Google and to you for as long as that was on. And we'll shift gears a bit. So that was more on the telecom side and your professional side. So let's understand a bit more about David. So David, I always find you to be a very fascinating personality. I know for a fact over the years of our friendship that you have a multifaceted personality, in fact. So let's hear a bit more about how do you recharge yourself? What is your passion? What is it that is David's calling?
Yeah, I have a few passions. I'm a big foodie. I like to cook. I like to try new foods and thing, and I like to go out and eat.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of the great joys of being in this industry. I've had the opportunity to experience a number of working in different countries and cultures, and the food is part of that experience. Um, I enjoy wine. I have a small collection of wine, so
Mm-hmm.
that certainly is a passion for me. But the big one that helps me recharge, when I was at school, I learned to play the flute, and I still play today. So every Thursday evening, I jump into my car, I drive down to Richmond in southwest London, and I play with the Q Wind Orchestra, which is a community orchestra made up of amateurs just like myself who enjoy playing music. We rehearse once a week, we play some music, we go to the pub and have a drink and have a catch up. 3 or 4 times a year, we play concerts in and around London. And that's really the thing I really do to recharge. It allows me to escape from everything else that's going on, and just immerse myself in music, which is really something that relaxes me.
Interesting. So, firstly, for all our listeners, there is a phrase that goes as that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And I think Mr. Weiger truly epitomizes that quote. Uh,
Absolutely.
I've been on the other side of the table when we have to coax David into giving us more business, and I've seen that one lunch meeting has helped a lot more than 10 sheets of sharing rates and routes and features. So, David, I totally get that first part, that food is definitely a calling, and flute. That's actually very interesting. So, I mean, music for sure is something which is a calling for a lot of people, and one doesn't hear so much about the flute. Actually, you hear about other instruments like guitars and drums, and the synthesizer maybe. So uh, how has that experience been for you? I mean, you've been playing for so many years. How does that actually help you in evolving as a human being?
For me, it's about relaxation
Hmm.
primarily. It allows me to escape from everything. As I said, it allows me to escape from everything else that's going on in any stresses I have from work, from life. I have a couple of hours where I can focus on playing some music. I can enjoy that, and that really helps me to relax. For
Hmm.
me as well, as a child, as a teenager, I invested a lot of time and energy in learning, in playing with with the youth wind orchestras, playing with the university symphony orchestra. I've invested a lot of time in being able to play the as well as I think I do today, and I get a sense of satisfaction that I haven't wasted all of that time and effort, that I'm still making use of that today.
Right. So, I think it's actually good that, childhood passion actually continues, because I think life comes in the way and one actually misses out on their childhood passion with years going by. So that's amazing that you stuck onto it. So, David, we are now gonna shift again to another section where we talk a bit more about. We play a couple of games actually. So,
Okay.
we're gonna ask a couple of things and we'll see how that goes. So, in the first part of this section, I'm gonna throw five words at you, and for
Yep.
each word, I'd love to understand what's the first thought that comes to your mind. So, as I tell all our guests, that be spontaneous, be human, be original, and we look forward to what you think. So, the first word is identity.
Ooh, opportunity keeps coming into my head, which I guess is very timely and relevant since that's what I'm doing today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the identity space for a little while now, and actually, a lot of what I've been doing in the messaging space for the last
Right.
10 years has actually been around identity, and
Mm-hmm.
really now we're looking at how can we do this better? How can we help protect people from the bad actors out there?
Right.
How can we help them avoid losing money, and how can we help them have a better online experience? So for me, that's just a huge opportunity.
So that's the new definition of identity for David. All right. Second one would be motivation.
Impact again, as I said, I think in earlier with the projects I've worked on, I really enjoy the work I do because of the impact it has, and that really has kept me motivated for the last 18 years or so.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I also know that you are a tremendous family person. So the third one is family.
Yeah, that's obviously my boys and my wife. So I have three boys.
Mm-hmm.
They're now 8, 6, and 4 years old.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so they keep us very busy, but it's lots of fun. My weekends are mostly spent watching football. But my oldest in particular is very very keen on football.
Uh-huh.
My middle one, I'm managing his youth football team, which is really great fun. Every Sunday, we turn up at a different venue, 8 boys, and it's just great fun. What's really nice there is that, um, and my son absolutely, my middle son Arthur absolutely epitomizes this. Even when they lose, even when it's pouring with rain and it's cold, they come off the pitch at the end of the game, and the first thing they ask me is, "Can we play more?" And that's really great to see. And now my youngest son has also started getting into football, so that's really nice, and it's a real pleasure to see that at the weekends. But yeah, family is absolutely very important to me.
Wonderful. Okay. The next word is mentor.
Ooh, there's a choice there. I've been very, very lucky that I've had some very, very good leaders throughout my career, and certainly some that I would absolutely call a mentor. I think the three that most come into my head, and I really apologise, to those whose names I don't say, and that's not to diminish the impact that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
But firstly, Ken Bodiley, who was my first manager at Tele2, he
Mm-hmm.
brought me into the industry. I obviously learned a huge amount from him. Um, the second one is Phil Holcombe.
Mm-hmm.
So when Nexmo started to grow, Tony brought Phil in to kind of to lead the operations efforts,
Mm-hmm.
and fairly quickly, I think it was it was the right decision that my organization would kind of fall into him. He has phenomenal experience. In running large departments, large organizations where there's an element of organization needed. And for me personally, Phil was absolutely fantastic as a guide on really just how to make decisions, what where I'm doing the right thing, where I'm going off on a tangent, all those kind of things. He was
Right.
a fantastic person to work for. And then I think the third person, probably Richard Woolhouse, who was my last manager at Google.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Particularly around building strategy and thinking slightly more long term. He was a really good person for that. But again, I don't want to diminish the many other people that I've worked for and been fortunate to work for.
Right. And I can see that each one of these three mentors and so many other leaders that we interact with, I think they all leave their little bit of their footprints on
Yep,
our personality. So that's amazing. And the
exactly.
last one is a little more interesting. It's guilty pleasures.
Oh well, I've already told you about the wine, of course. I do enjoy. I really enjoy wine. I enjoy learning about wine and the regions and the grape varieties and things like that. I think you know what I'm going to say, Anurag, and that's karaoke. Um, because you and I have shared a number of very memorable evenings at a karaoke bar somewhere in the world. When I was a teenager, um, uh, part, as well as playing the flute, I was very into things like musical theatre. I was always in the school plays, school musicals. At university, I was in Exeter University Footlight Society.
Mhm.
I've always been very interested in that. I enjoy singing, and and today that really is karaoke. So whenever there's a conference, if there's an opportunity to go to a karaoke bar with friends such as yourself, as you know, I'm always the first one leading the charge.
Absolutely. I can vouch for that. And, in fact, I can definitely owe a lot of my career success also to karaoke. That's where I actually bonded with you and so many people from the industry. So I can totally vibe with that.
I seem to recall, was yours Hot Stepper?
No, you're saying my favorite one?
Yeah,
Mine was Mambo number five.
that was number 5.
Oh God, and I remember how much I goofed up on it. I still remember I think we were in Brussels and
Yes.
we went to this karaoke bar, and I remember that as they say, it was like a rookie mistake for me. I chose that one because I thought that's the closest to a familiar song that I have, and I remember how badly I performed, and I think that actually helped bonding at a different level as well.
Yeah, I remember that evening. That was a lot of fun. But that's the nice thing about karaoke, particularly amongst friends. It doesn't matter how bad you are.
Absolutely,
It's all
yeah.
about whether you're having fun.
Yeah, I know. And I think that communal feeling is amazing out here. Wonderful. That's been very interesting, David. So now we play yet another game, and I must confess that I have never won at this,
You know,
and and I have a strong feeling that yet again with you I don't stand a chance, but we'll give it a shot. So I want you to say two truths and a lie, and
okay,
I'll try and guess which one is the lie. All right?
okay. So I'm
Mhm.
going to give you 3 potential jobs that I had when I was a teenager. Okay.
Okay.
First one, a security guard in a shop. Second
Okay.
one, a paper boy. And the third one, a skate guard at a roller disco.
Hmm. Oh God, this is gonna be a tough one. Uh, I'm quite sure you must have been a paper boy at some point. I think that's a journey which many of us have been through. Um I'll go with the skate guard.
As the lie.
Is the lie? I don't think you've been a skate guard.
So for the viewers out there, when you think about security guard, you probably picture someone who's got a bit of muscle on them, got a
Mm-hmm.
decent bit of bodily presence. I am not a muscly guy. I'm relatively thin. I'm quite tall. I'm not what you would consider. I'm not how you might picture a security guard. However, Anurag, you're wrong again.
Oh God.
I was a security guard in a shop. When I was 16, I worked for Wilkinson's or Wilco's. So
Uh-huh.
those in the UK will recognise Wilco's as a everything you need in the house except for your weekly groceries. I started as a Saturday till boy, and over time progressed to do a whole number of roles in the store, shelf stacking. I worked on nights bringing the deliveries in, and yes, there were times when, due to a lack of security guards and the fact that I was the kind of odd job guy at that point, I was the security guard for a time,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure I probably wouldn't have put too many would-be thieves off. I was a skate guard. One of the main sports I played when I was younger was skater hockey, which at the time was a very fast-growing sport in the UK.
Uh-huh.
Think roller hockey. It's a variation on roller hockey, really. And I played that for a number of years. I got quite good at roller skating. I used to go to the roller discos, and I can't even remember how I got into this, but I knew someone who ran a roller disco. I think it was through the hockey, and he asked me if I could come along and be a skate card at a few parties. I earned some token amount of money, so I get to count that as a job. I have never been a paper boy.
Well, there is a sort of a sweet irony around that, because if you really think about it, a paper boy is basically somebody who's delivering news and information out there to people. And
Mm,
if you look at our role in the CPAS space, that's exactly what we are doing. So, my friend, I think we are all paper boys and paper girls of sorts.
yep, absolutely.
All right, but yet again, I lose. I'm sure I'm gonna win someday. And David, a final one out here. I'm sure with your three sons and your wife, or even in your own free time, you watched movies. So tell us one movie which is something that you can actually relate a lot to. And if there was one character out there, who would that be that you would like to play?
Okay. I don't really think I can relate to this character that much myself, but one of my favourite movies is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's a
Uh-huh.
movie from the 1980s. Ferris Bueller, slightly wayward teenager, decides to bunk off school for the day with his girlfriend and his best friend, and they
Mm-hmm.
go off on some crazy adventure. His best friend is a little bit uptight, um, and at the end, his best friend, has a bit of an epiphany and just relaxes a bit, and doesn't take things too seriously. And I just like that movie because it's very easy to watch. It's quite funny, and it's just got a nice. I think it's got a nice story to it about just not taking things too seriously, and that's really why I like that movie so much.
And I think it seems to have rubbed off as an effect on you as well, because in all our conversations I've seen that we come across so many challenges, business challenges, but somehow I always feel that you take it on your chin and you just move on with all the challenges. So maybe it's actually rubbed off on you in a positive way.
Hopefully, yes.
Wonderful. So, David, we've been having so much fun, like in every conversation that we do. But sadly, so we are finally at the last section of this podcast. And two quick questions here. Firstly, we know you're very active in the industry. I think half the time you're on a plane. So, if somebody wants to meet David Vigar and take him out for a glass of wine, or in your case, a bottle of wine, where can one meet David?
So the next conference I'll be attending is likely to be ITW, International Telecoms Week.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the largest shows in the wholesale voice messaging and data space. It's held in Washington, D.C. at the Gaylord National Conference Center. And
Mhm.
I think from memory, it's the 14th to the 17th of May. So
Uh-huh.
you will hopefully see me there for a couple of days, which will be nice. It'd be nice to catch up with friends, old and new, from my time in the industry.
Wonderful. And anything else in the offering after that?
Not decided yet. Obviously, the summer is a little bit quieter as everyone goes off on their summer vacations.
Mm-hmm.
I know that autumn gets a little bit busier.
Mm-hmm.
Within TruSense, we're very much at a stage of building, iterating our products. So we're being quite careful about about the where geographically we're focused. So at the moment, it's I'm not sure. It may be Croatia for the GSMA wholesale event. It
Right.
could be the Philippines for Asia Carrier Conference. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure yet. We will see. But certainly ITW in Washington is where you'll find me next.
Wonderful. So, guys, book your tickets for Washington if you want to meet this wonderful human being. So, on that note, David, our final question, which is our signature question, that what does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
I think I think there's two things for me that resonate. One is being kind, which I think we all should try to be, and it's difficult. And I know I'm guilty of not being kind at times, but I think that's one of the greatest human qualities that exists is the ability to just recognize that kindness is it really helps people. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. And as I said a couple of times on the call, it's impact. I'd love to be remembered for someone who changed something meaningful for people.
Right. And I think, David, in all the roles that you played, I think you really created a lot of impact on people around you. I can vouch for it for my own self. So, for sure, I think you've really done what you were planning to do. So, great. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks, David. And thank you so much for being part of this journey. And, I think in the coming years, one would look forward to seeing you achieve so many more milestones. So, we all look forward to that.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for having me, Anurag, and I look forward to catching up with you in person in the near future.
Absolutely, David. So, thank you once again. And to all our wonderful listeners out here, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of David Vigar. As always, it is such an interesting conversation with this person whenever we get together. And I actually feel really happy that today you all got to be a part of it too. So, do stay tuned in because we shall soon be coming out with yet another episode. More fascinating stories from the telecom space. Do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.